Which of these faces feels the least trustworthy? Do not choose the face you think looks the most dangerous. Do not choose the person with the darkest expression, the coldest eyes, or the most obvious tension in the mouth. Take a moment now. Look at all 4 faces carefully, and notice which one creates a quiet feeling inside you. Not fear exactly, not dislike, something more subtle, a small hesitation, a sense that something is hidden behind the expression. Which face would you avoid in a crowded room? Which person would you hesitate to tell your private thoughts to? And which face gives you the feeling that the smile is not entirely genuine? Choose one now. Once you have made your decision, keep it in your mind. Do not change your answer. Your first reaction is important because the unconscious mind rarely speaks in explanations. It speaks through impressions, tension, attraction, discomfort, and instinctive emotional movement. But before I reveal what your choice truly means, understand one important thing. This test is not designed to diagnose a stranger. It cannot tell you whether someone is truly dishonest, narcissistic, dangerous, or manipulative. A face is not proof of a personality. An expression is not a confession. And your choice does not reveal an objective fact about the person you selected. What it reveals is something more intimate. It reveals the emotional pattern your mind notices first. It reveals the kind of behavior your nervous system has learned to distrust. It may reveal the wound you carry into relationships, the kind of deception you fear most, or the part of yourself you have learned to hide from other people. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious often appears through projection. Projection is a process through which we see something within ourselves or something unresolved from our past and experience it as though it belongs entirely to someone else. This does not mean your intuition is always wrong. It means your intuition is personal. 2 people can look at the same face and experience completely different emotions. One person sees confidence. Another sees arrogance. One sees sadness. Another sees weakness. One sees mystery. Another sees danger. The face has not changed. The observer has. That is why this test matters. Not because one face contains a secret diagnosis, but because your reaction may reveal the emotional language through which you interpret the world. Some people are sensitive to false charm. They do not trust warmth that appears too quickly. Others are unsettled by emotional distance. They feel threatened by people who reveal nothing. Some distrust nervousness because it reminds them of concealed guilt. And some feel uncomfortable around intense eye contact because it creates a sensation of being examined, exposed, or psychologically invaded. There is no single correct answer. What this test actually measures is not whether you can identify a dishonest face. It measures which emotional signal your unconscious mind treats as a warning. Now, look again at the face you selected. Do not ask, what is wrong with this person? Ask instead, what does this expression awaken in me? That question changes everything. If you chose the first face, the person with a charming expression and an easy smile, your unconscious may be especially sensitive to false warmth. You may have learned that not every kind word is generous, and not every smile is safe. Perhaps you have encountered people who were immediately charming, attentive, and emotionally engaging, only become controlling or dismissive once they knew they had gained your trust. You may notice when someone tries too hard to be liked. You may feel suspicious when a stranger becomes unusually personal too quickly. You may ask yourself why they're being so generous, why they're asking so many questions, or why their interest feels so perfectly designed to make you comfortable. This does not mean you are incapable of trusting people. It means your trust is not given freely. It must be earned through consistency. You may be the kind of person who watches what someone does after the conversation ends. You notice whether their kindness remains when there is nothing to gain. You notice whether they treat people with respect when those people have no social power. You notice whether their words and behavior remain aligned over time. Your hidden wound may be connected to betrayal disguised as affection. At some point, you may have learned that the most painful deception does not always arrive with hostility. Sometimes it arrives through attention. Sometimes it arrives through compliments, promises, and emotional closeness. The wound is not simply that someone lied. The wound is that you believe the warmth was real. Because of this, your mind may now scan for exaggeration. You may look closely at the smile, the timing, and emotional intensity. You may wonder whether the person is expressing genuine feeling or performing the version of themselves they believe you want to see. The sensitivity can protect you, but it can also become exhausting. When the unconscious expects hidden motives everywhere, even sincere affection can begin to feel suspicious. A genuine compliment may be examined until its warmth disappears. A new friendship may be held at a distance because your mind is waiting for the moment when the kindness changes. Carl Jung might describe this as the shadow of discernment. Discernment is wisdom when it is connected to evidence, but when it is controlled by an old wound, it can become permanent suspicion. So ask yourself honestly, are you responding to this person or to someone from your past who looked emotionally similar? That question is not an accusation. It is an invitation to bring the pattern into consciousness. The goal is not to become naive. The goal is to stop allowing yesterday's deception to make every new person prove their innocence before they have done anything wrong. Now, if you chose the second phase, the person with the calm expression and the almost unreadable eyes, your unconscious may distrust emotional distance. You may feel uncomfortable around people who reveal very little. When someone is quiet, controlled, or difficult to read, your mind may immediately begin searching for the hidden meaning. What are they thinking? Why are they not reacting? Do they dislike me? Are they judging me? Are they hiding something? You may have a strong need for emotional transparency. You do not necessarily need people to speak constantly, but you need to feel that their inner world is available. Silence without explanation may create tension inside you. You may be drawn to expressive people because their emotions are easier to understand. You know where you stand with them. Their anger is visible. Their affection is visible. Their disappointment is visible. But with emotionally reserved people, you may feel as though you are standing outside a locked room. Your hidden wound may be connected to emotional abandonment. Perhaps someone important in your life was physically present but emotionally unreachable. Perhaps you learned to interpret silence because no one explained what was happening. You became skilled at reading small changes in tone, posture, and facial expression because direct communication was not available. When a child grows up around emotional uncertainty, the mind becomes a detective. It searches for clues. A closed door becomes a message. A delayed response becomes a warning. A quiet room becomes proof that something is wrong. Later in life, this detective may continue working even when danger is no longer present. You may enter a room and immediately notice who is withdrawn. You may sense when someone's mood changes before they say a word. You may understand people deeply, but struggle to relax around those who do not offer the same emotional access in return. Your intuition may be powerful, but your nervous system may confuse mystery with rejection. This is where the test changes. The calm face may not represent a dishonest person. It may simply represent a kind of emotional uncertainty that your past taught you to fear. You may not be afraid of lies themselves. You may be afraid of not knowing what is real. That is an important distinction. When you cannot read someone, you may begin filling the silence with your own fears. You may imagine disappointment, criticism, or betrayal because uncertainty feels more painful than a negative answer. But not every quiet person is withholding love. Not every reserved person is judging you. Some people are simply private. Some are slow to trust. Some process emotions internally rather than displaying them immediately. Your healing may require learning that emotional privacy is not always emotional rejection. Take a moment now and ask yourself, when someone becomes quiet, do I give them space, or do I immediately search for evidence that I have done something wrong? That answer may tell you more about your wound than the face itself. If you chose the third face, the person with the nervous half smile and the slightly uncertain expression, your unconscious may be sensitive to hidden guilt. You may distrust people who appear uneasy, inconsistent, or overly careful with their words. When someone seems nervous, you may wonder what they are trying to conceal. Perhaps you have experienced situations where a person's anxiety was not harmless nervousness, but a sign that they were preparing to lie. Maybe you asked a direct question and noticed that the person avoided eye contact, changed the subject, or began explaining too much. Now, when you see similar behavior, your body may react before your mind has time to evaluate the situation. You may notice trembling hands. You may notice a sudden change in breathing. You may notice when someone laughs at the wrong moment. You may notice when their story sounds polished but emotionally disconnected. You are likely sensitive to contradiction. You may not care whether someone makes a mistake, but you care deeply when they refuse to acknowledge it. Your hidden wound may be connected to being made responsible for someone else's dishonesty. Perhaps someone lied and then made you feel guilty for asking questions. Perhaps you were told that you were imagining things, being too sensitive, or creating conflict, even when your instincts were warning you that something did not make sense. This can create a dangerous internal conflict. Part of you notices the inconsistency. Another part of you has been trained to doubt your perception. So you learn to study people carefully. You listen to the words, but you also listen to the pauses between them. You watch the moment before an answer arrives. You notice whether someone becomes defensive when you ask for clarity. This may make you perceptive, but it may also make you overly responsible for detecting every hidden truth. You may believe that if you observe carefully enough, you can prevent betrayal. If you notice the smallest signal, perhaps you can leave before the pain begins. But no amount of observation can provide complete certainty. People are complicated. Honest people can become nervous. Innocent people can appear defensive. Someone may avoid eye contact because they are anxious, not because they are lying. Your healing may involve separating behavior from meaning. A nervous expression is information, but it is not a verdict. A pause is a detail, but it is not proof. A contradiction deserves attention, but it should be explored through calm communication rather than immediate judgment. Your instinct may be asking you to slow down, not to condemn. Now, if you chose a fourth face, the person with the intense direct gaze, your unconscious may be particularly sensitive to control, dominance, or psychological pressure. You may feel uneasy around people who hold eye contact for too long, speak with excessive certainty, or create the feeling that they are trying to enter your mind before you have invited them in. You may recognize when conversation stops, feeling mutual. You may notice when someone is no longer listening, but waiting for an opportunity to control the direction of exchange. You may sense when a person is using confidence to avoid accountability. Your hidden wound may be connected to being overpowered. Perhaps you have been around someone whose emotions filled the entire room. Their anger decided what everyone could say. Their silence became a punishment. Their opinions were treated as facts, and your feelings were treated as obstacles. When a person grows up around control, independence becomes sacred. You may dislike being questioned too aggressively. You may react strongly when someone demands access to your private thoughts. You may resist people who attempt to define you before they understand you. You may tell yourself that you simply dislike arrogance. But beneath that dislike may be a deeper fear. The fear of disappearing inside someone else's expectations. Your shadow may not be weakness. It may be the part of you that has learned to become hard in order to remain free. This strength has probably protected you. You can recognize manipulation. You do not easily surrender your judgment. You are willing to walk away from relationships that require you to abandon your identity. But there is also a risk. When your nervous system has learned to associate intensity with control, even passionate and emotionally present people may feel threatening. A confident person may seem arrogant. A direct person may seem aggressive. A strong opinion may feel like an attempt to dominate you. So ask yourself, am I responding to this person's actual behavior or the memory of a time when someone's intensity took away my freedom? That distinction can help you remain powerful without becoming permanently guarded. There is no single correct answer. What this test actually measures is the kind of emotional signal your unconscious mind treats as dangerous. The smiling face may awaken your fear of false affection. The unreadable face may awaken your fear of emotional abandonment. The nervous face may awaken your fear of hidden guilt and self-doubt. The intense face may awaken your fear of control and psychological invasion. But these interpretations are not fixed identities. They are mirrors. And a mirror does not tell you who you must remain. It shows you what is currently asking to be seen. This is the part many people misunderstand about shadow work. The shadow is not simply the evil part of your personality. It is not proof that you are secretly cruel, manipulative, jealous, or broken. The shadow contains everything you have pushed outside your acceptable self-image. It may contain anger you were not allowed to express, desire you were taught to suppress, boundaries you were afraid to defend, Vulnerability you believed would make you weak. Sometimes, the shadow contains your strength. A person who always appears calm may have hidden anger. A person who is endlessly helpful may have hidden resentment. A person who never asks for support may have hidden grief. The qualities we reject in ourselves often appear exaggerated in other people. This is why projection can feel so intense. You are not merely seeing a behavior. You are encountering a part of your own psychological history. Perhaps you strongly dislike attention-seeking people because you were taught never to ask for recognition. Perhaps you distrust emotional people because your own emotions were once treated as inconvenient. Perhaps you judge people who appear selfish because you've spent your life giving more than you truly wanted to give. The outer reaction may be pointing toward an inner division. Now, I want you to think about a real person from your life, not someone you dislike casually. Think of someone whose presence creates a strong emotional response in you. What exactly do you distrust about them? Is it their charm, their silence, their nervousness, their confidence? Now ask yourself whether that quality exists anywhere inside you, even in a form you rarely express. You may not be charming the same way, but perhaps you secretly wish you could influence people more easily. You may not be emotionally distant, but perhaps you envy the ability to remain unaffected. You may not appear nervous, but perhaps you carry guilt or uncertainty that you hide beneath control. You may not dominate others, but perhaps there's a part of you that wants to stop apologizing for your strength. Projection does not mean that the other person has done nothing wrong. Some people are genuinely manipulative. Some people use charm to control. Some people hide behind silence. Some people exploit vulnerability. Some people attempt to dominate every room they enter. The purpose of projection work is not to excuse harmful behavior. It is to make sure your reaction belongs to the present moment and not entirely to the past. You can hold both truths at the same time. Someone may be behaving unfairly, and your old wound may be intensifying your response. Someone may be untrustworthy, and you may still be interpreting them through the lens of an earlier betrayal. Wisdom begins when you can distinguish the two. At this point, return to the face you selected. Imagine that the person is no longer a stranger. Imagine that they are speaking to you calmly, asking you one question. What are you afraid I might do? Do not answer quickly. Let the question remain inside you. If you chose a charming face, perhaps you fear being deceived after opening your heart. If you chose the unreadable face, perhaps you fear being abandoned without explanation. If you chose a nervous face, perhaps you fear being told that your perception is wrong. If you chose the intense face, perhaps you fear losing yourself inside another person's control. Your answer may reveal the wound beneath the judgment. And once the wound becomes conscious, it no longer has to control every reaction in secret. This does not mean you will suddenly trust everyone. It means you will begin trusting yourself in a deeper way. Not only the part of you that detects danger, but also the part of you that can pause, investigate, communicate, and choose. The mature form of intuition is not panic. It is clarity. Panic says, leave immediately or you will be hurt. Clarity says, something feels unusual. I will pay attention without abandoning my judgment. Panic says, this person reminds me of someone dangerous, so they must be dangerous. Clarity says, this person reminds me of someone from my past. I will observe what is actually happening now. Panic closes the door before reality has entered. Clarity keeps the door guarded, but not permanently locked. That may be the deeper lesson behind your choice. The unconscious is not trying to punish you. It is trying to protect you with the tools it learned long ago. But some tools become outdated. The alarm system that saved you in one relationship may create loneliness in another. The emotional armor that protected you from criticism may prevent genuine intimacy. The skepticism that helped you survive betrayal may make you suspicious of people who have never harmed you. Healing does not require destroying the alarm system. It requires teaching it the difference between memory and evidence. So the next time someone makes you uncomfortable, take a moment now. Ask yourself 3 questions. What did this person actually do? What story did my mind immediately create about it? And what older experience might be influencing my reaction? These questions create space between stimulus and response. Within that space, you regain choice. You can still leave. You can still set a boundary. You can still say no. But you do so from conscious strength rather than unconscious fear. And that is the difference between being controlled by your shadow and becoming acquainted with it. If your chosen face revealed something uncomfortable, do not use that discomfort as a reason to judge yourself. The wound you discovered was formed for a reason. It may have helped you survive confusion, rejection, betrayal, or control. It may have helped you become perceptive when no one else was paying attention. It may have given you the ability to read emotional undercurrents that others completely miss. Your sensitivity is not the enemy. Your sensitivity simply needs guidance. The goal is not to become less aware. The goal is to become less imprisoned by what you notice. Because sometimes the most trustworthy person in the room is not the one who appears the warmest, the calmest, the most nervous, or the most confident. Sometimes trust is revealed through consistency, through accountability, through the willingness to respect your boundaries, through the ability to admit mistakes without turning the blame toward you. And sometimes the most important person you learn to trust is yourself, not the fearful version of you that expects betrayal everywhere, not the hardened version of you that refuses all vulnerability, but the conscious version of you that can observe, question, and choose. If one of these interpretations felt strangely personal, bring it into the light. You can share your chosen face in the comments, but more importantly, share the emotional signal it awakened in you. Did you distrust the smile, the silence, the nervousness, the intensity? Naming the pattern is the first step toward understanding it. And when you name what has been operating unconsciously, it becomes something you can work with rather than something that secretly works through you. There is no single correct answer. What this test actually measures is the hidden story behind your instinct. Your choice may have shown you what you fear in other people, but it may also have shown you what you have been protecting inside yourself. Take that knowledge gently. You do not need to change everything today. You only need to notice the moment when an old wound begins speaking through a new situation. Then pause, breathe, look again, ask what is true now, and remember that your past may explain your reactions, but it does not have to decide your future. You are allowed to become more discerning without becoming colder. You are allowed to protect yourself without closing yourself completely. You are allowed to recognize manipulation without assuming that every form of affection is a trap. You are allowed to value emotional honesty without demanding that everyone reveal themselves at your pace. And you are allowed to be powerful without becoming controlled by the need to control others. The face you chose was only the doorway. The real test was whether you were willing to look beyond the stranger and recognize the part of yourself that reacted first. That is where psychological awareness begins, not with certainty, with curiosity, not with judgment, with observation, and not with the question, what is wrong with them? But with the deeper question, what is this reaction trying to teach me about myself? You already took one step in that direction today.